week's live weekly warm-up. A couple of updates. I have a new camera and sort of a new setup if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube. So I hope that you can hear me okay. I hope that you can maybe see me a little bit better now that I have a little bit nicer camera. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to share lots of great warm-ups with you. Now hopefully looking maybe a little bit better. I got a new haircut too, which is exciting. I also want to give a little disclaimer or something like that. After doing 62 live weekly warm-ups, I'm starting to run out of warm-up exercises. So if you have any warm-up exercises that you like to do that, even if you've seen me cover it before, if you'd like to see me do it again and go maybe a different angle with it, or if you have specific questions about a specific warm-up, that would be fantastic. And of course, if you have exercises that you haven't seen me do that you think would be beneficial, or exercises that you really like, be sure to share them. I do still have some more that I can do, and you can make a warm-up exercise out of anything. So I'll keep doing them because I love getting to go live with all of you and sort of talk about these things and work on them. And I think hopefully you all appreciate having a little bit of motivation and a little bit of a goal each week for what to be working on. So if you have any ideas, comment them. But today I want to get into an exercise that is maybe not necessarily a warm-up exercise, but it's something that's great to do during your warm-ups. Similar to the buzzing that I did last time, where it's something that you can do when you're warming up or really anytime that you're playing anything, but it really makes a big difference for sort of the quality of your playing and just the benefits that you can get out of your warm-up exercise. So I'm calling this experimental long tones because it's basically just long tones, but what we're going to do is go really in depth talking about how you can experiment with your long tones. That's the key to doing long tones effectively, is feeling free to really experiment a lot and try lots of different variations and really mess with things to get your very best sound, because long tones are all about getting the sound you want and sounding the way that you want. If you can't sound your very best and sound the way you want on just one note, there's no way you're going to be able to do it when you're playing lots of notes in your music, right? So here's some ways that we can experiment. The way that I like to think of it is that there's lots and lots of different variables. There's your air, your embouchure, your tongue position, embouchure pressure, embouchure shape, all of those different things that we can mess with and adjust. And what I'm going to do is take just a few of those and really experiment with them quite a lot to see what happens with the quality. So I'm just going to play one note. It's great to do this on maybe several different notes, or just one note each day. Maybe you do a different note as you experiment, or you can do this in your normal long tones, whether it's Christmas tree long tones, scale long tones, whatever it may be. Taking this time to experiment to really get the sound you want is an absolute game changer. So the first thing that I'm going to do, just like a good scientist, I'm going to try to control as many variables as I can and really only adjust one thing at a time and see what effect that has. The first one that I'm going to do is embouchure pressure, because that one's really obvious and can make a really big difference. So what I'm going to do is try to blow with full strength air, try to have roughly the right embouchure shape, but I'm going to start with absolutely no pressure on the reed, and then gradually clamp down on the reed and see what happens to the sound. Just like a good scientist, I'm just sort of experimenting, seeing what happens. I might have a hypothesis, but it's up to the actual experiment, the demonstration, to see what creates the sound I want. So I'm going to do this on an open G because that's a really responsive note for things like this. But again, do whatever notes you want. And I'll sort of demonstrate what my embouchure pressure is doing. So you could hear, initially it was super fuzzy sound, actually no sound, and then it got fuzzy, and then it got clearer and clearer, and then it started to get really thin and not so great. So I'm going to do that again, and I'm just going to sort of play with it like a violinist or a string instrument. Sometimes you hear them tune and they sort of do that like da ya 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 and go like back and forth until they narrow in on it. I'm going to do the same thing with my embouchure pressure to find that sweet spot that makes the very best sound. So maybe that's where I'm happy with it. And now I'm going to try to control that variable with that same amount of embouchure pressure, but I'm going to try experimenting with another variable. So what I'm going to do is go up and down on the reed this time. So I'm going to start with very little reed in my mouth and then go more and more and more and more reed and see what happens. And you can see if you go too far, it squeaks. If you go too little, it's no sound at all. And it's, again, about finding that sweet spot. And again, I could do the same thing where I sort of go back and forth to try to find that sweet spot for where I like it. Now you can see how we can be really deliberate about this experimenting, go really crazy. I actually do want to do one more. I wasn't planning on this, but I think it's another really good one. I'm going to adjust my tongue position. And for this, I'm actually going to do a higher note. So I'm going to do a high C because that's a little more obvious. And I'm going to try to lower my tongue position and raise my tongue position, just so you can see another variable that you can be experimenting with. So again, you can get all kinds of crazy sounds by going to the extremes, but if you can know what's happening at the extremes, then you can know how to really find the right sweet spot for what makes it sound really the very best. Now, let me demonstrate how this might work a little bit faster, more in real time on like a Christmas tree long tone or whatever your favorite long tone exercise may be. So that's just a brief example. You could hear how when I first started, there was lots of variety in the sound. That was me experimenting, trying different embouchure pressure, moving my embouchure around, changing the tongue position, the air pressure, messing with all of those variables. And then I sort of narrowed in on what I really liked and just kept that going continuously. And as I went along, it sort of narrowed out and I got that really great, even, consistent sound that I'm going for. But first, I had to experiment to find the sound that I wanted and then make that consistent and regular. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I see Colleen commenting on my cool Denver Symphony poster. Yeah, this is actually a really great story. My grandpa went to a garage sale, and it was David Sparks, I believe, who played in the Denver Symphony. This is from the 85 to 86 season, which I think was their last season or close to their last season before it transferred to the Colorado Symphony. So it was just crazy that he went to a garage sale and got chatting with the guy and realized that he played clarinet, and I was playing clarinet at the time. I was in high school at that time, so he got some cool clarinet stuff from the former clarinetist of the old school Denver Symphony. So that was just a fun little story. But I hope that you all enjoy experimenting with your long tones and really getting the sound that you want out of the clarinet so that you can get that sound every single time that you play anything. And thanks so much for tuning in to this live weekly warm-up. If you have any warm-up exercises that you want an explanation on, leave those in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the next live weekly warm-up.